Hey everybody, it's Lindsay with Charles Real Estate here, and today's video is all about the first-time homebuyers incentive for 2019. I'm going to be talking about who can qualify for this incentive, how it's used practically, and some tips around using it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So in order to talk about this incentive, I need to touch on the stress test mortgage rules that were put in place in 2018. You might remember that these rules were put in place and they meant that you had to qualify for a higher rate than what your mortgage was actually going to be. And the idea behind it was that the government didn't want home buyers getting into mortgages that they couldn't afford if the interest rates continued to go up. And that makes sense, but what they actually found was that it was pushing a lot of home buyers out of the market entirely, especially first-time home buyers. So here we are in 2019, and they've put this incentive in place to help home buyers get into the market, or first-time home buyers get into the market. So who qualifies for this first-time home buyers incentive? Well, obviously you have to be a first-time home buyer. You have to make less than $120,000 a year. You have to have saved the minimum 5% down payment on the home yourself. And you can only qualify to buy a home that is 4 times what your salary is. So for example, if you're making $100,000 a year, you can only buy a home up to $400,000. So how does it work practically? Well, with this incentive, the government or its entity, CMHC, which is the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, is going to lend an interest-free loan to first-time home buyers. That amount is going to be 5% on a resale home and up to 10% on a brand new build, so a brand new home. So if you are somebody who wants to buy a resale home, you make less than $120,000 a year. So let's say in this example, you make $100,000 a year and you want to buy a $400,000 home. You've saved and you've put enough away for a 5% down payment, which is $20,000. So the government will then give you an additional $20,000 or an additional 5% to put towards the mortgage. So you've saved $20,000, the government is going to give you 5%, which is another $20,000, and then that would make your overall mortgage $360,000 instead of what it would have been before, which is $380,000, which was just taking into account your own deposit, your own down payment. So as you can see, it does minimize the amount that you are going to have to pay in your mortgage. That lower amount is going to reduce your monthly costs. So who is this good for? Well, I mean, it makes the most sense for people who, have worked to save a lot of money. You have that down payment, but you're just a little bit too far away from being able to afford those monthly payments on a little bit more of an expensive house. So a few things that you need to know about this program. You have to pay it back. It is an interest-free loan, but you have to pay it back at the end of your mortgage amortization period. So typically 25 years. You can pay it back sooner than that. You can pay it back at any point during your mortgage, but you have to pay it back in full. You can't pay it back in installments, for example. Another thing to really note is that while this is an interest-free loan, when you actually go to sell your house, if your house has appreciated in value, you're going to have to pay back 5% in our previous example. You're going to have to pay back 5% of the newly appreciated value of your house. The same is true if your home has depreciated too, though. So if your home's gone down in value, then you're going to have to pay 5% of the newly depreciated value of your house. And the other thing to keep in mind is that if you've got 2 people looking to buy a home together and one of them is a first-time home buyer and the other isn't, there still might be an option for you to qualify as a first-time home buyer in that situation. So that's it for me. I hope this cleared up some of the questions around the first-time home buyers incentive. If you have questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out to me, or I can recommend some really great mortgage brokers that can go into this in a lot more detail for you.